She's a monster, they warned, but she, vampire woman, just wanted to be loved. She was known only as Noctira inside the cold records of the Galactic Union. Numbers followed her name, along with warnings written in bold symbols. Extreme threat, apex predator. Emotional manipulation risk. Terminate if containment fails. To most beings in the galaxy, that was all she was. A monster locked behind reinforced walls. The containment chamber sat deep beneath Research Station Halcyon, far from trade routes and civilian worlds. It was built for fear. Thick, transparent barriers hummed with energy. Automated turrets tracked every movement inside. Sensors watched her heartbeat, her breath, even her thoughts as best the machines could guess. Guards rotated every 6 hours, though none stayed long enough to learn her patterns. Most avoided looking directly at her. Noctira noticed everything. She sat quietly on the smooth floor, knees drawn close, pale hands resting on her arms. Her eyes glowed faintly in the low light, not from anger but from hunger she refused to satisfy. Her kind survived on bioenergy taken from others, but she had not fed in a long time. Weakness pressed into her limbs, yet she remained still. Stillness was safer. Stillness meant control. She remembered another life, one before metal walls and whispered warnings, a sky the color of deep violet, voices that spoke her name without fear. That life felt very far away now, like a dream fading after waking. Footsteps echoed outside the chamber. Noctira lifted her head slowly. She knew those steps, lighter than the guards, uneven, almost careless, human steps. The human technician entered the control area carrying a small data pad and a toolkit. His name tag read Elias Ward. He was younger than most assigned here, with tired eyes and a calm face that never showed disgust. He stopped at the console and began his routine checks, humming softly without realizing it. Noctira watched him through the barrier. Most humans avoided speaking near her chamber. Some believed silence was safer. Elias did not. He always spoke, even if no one answered. Morning systems look stable, he said quietly, mostly to himself. Shield output steady, no anomalies. He glanced up, their eyes meeting for a brief moment. Noctira did not bare her teeth. She did not move closer. She simply nodded once, a small and careful motion. Elias nodded back just as small. That was how it always was between them. No words exchanged directly, no sudden movements, just acknowledgement. To the galaxy it meant nothing. To Noctira it meant everything. She had learned long ago that fear made people cruel. Elias was not cruel. An alarm chirped softly from the console. Elias frowned and leaned closer. "That's odd," he murmured. "Energy fluctuation in the secondary grid." He tapped commands into the pad, brow furrowing deeper. Noctira sensed the change before the machines did. The hum of the barrier wavered slightly, like a breath caught in the throat. Something was wrong. Elias stepped closer to the access panel near the containment door. Protocol required 2 guards present for that. Today the guards were late. "It's just a quick recalibration," Elias said under his breath, more to calm himself than anyone else. "In and out." Noctira's fingers curled slowly. She wanted to warn him, but her voice had not been used in so long that it felt dangerous. Sounds could be misunderstood. Sounds could confirm their fears. Elias opened the panel. The lights flickered. In that moment, the containment field destabilized, not fully, but enough. The barrier shimmered and thinned, its energy signature dropping fast. Automated systems began rebooting, confused by conflicting data. Elias froze as warning symbols flooded the console. "Wait," he whispered. "That's not right." The door behind him slid shut with a heavy clang, locking automatically. Emergency protocol. He was inside the containment wing now, alone. Noctira stood. Alarms began to rise, distant but growing. Turrets powered up, tracking her sudden movement. The machines did not understand context. They only understood threat. Elias turned slowly, his breath shallow. For the first time since being assigned here, fear crossed his face. Noctira stopped several steps away from the weakened barrier. She could feel it. One strike would shatter it. One step forward and she would be free. And Elias would be dead. Her instincts screamed at her. Hunger, survival, escape. Every part of her biology urged action. This was the moment her species waited for, proof that she was no different. Instead, she raised her hands, palms open. Elias stared, confused. "I'm not armed," he said quietly, though he knew that was meaningless to her kind. Noctira took a slow breath. Her voice emerged rough, unused, but clear. "Do not move," she said. The turrets adjusted, targeting her center mass. Elias swallowed. "I'm listening." The barrier flickered again. Energy surged wildly. If it collapsed completely, the turrets would fire, tearing through the chamber and likely killing them both. Noctira turned slightly, eyes scanning the failing emitters along the wall. She understood energy systems better than most engineers. Her people had mastered them long before humanity discovered spaceflight. She moved toward the nearest emitter. "Wait," Elias said, panic rising. "If you get closer, the system will—" "I know," she replied. She placed her hand against the exposed emitter housing. Pain shot through her arm as raw energy burned her skin. She did not cry out. Instead, she focused, redirecting the flow with precise movements, adjusting frequencies by instinct. The turrets hesitated, their targeting algorithms confused by the sudden stabilization. Elias watched in disbelief as the alarms quieted, one by one. The barrier reformed, solid and bright. Noctira staggered back, gripping her arm. Dark scorch marks covered her pale skin. The door behind Elias unlocked with a soft hiss. Security flooded in moments later, weapons raised, shouting commands. They found Elias standing frozen, staring at the vampire woman who had retreated to the center of her chamber and sat down slowly, exhausted. "She saved the system," Elias said hoarsely. "She saved me." The guards did not lower their weapons. Medical drones moved in to scan Noctira, surprised to find severe energy damage. A predator would not risk itself like that. A monster would not choose pain over escape. From behind reinforced glass, officials watched the playback footage again and again. Each time the same conclusion unsettled them. She had the chance, she did not take it. Noctira lay back against the cool floor, her strength fading fast. Hunger gnawed at her harder now, sharpened by injury. Still, a quiet warmth settled in her chest. For the first time since her capture, someone had seen her choice. Not the monster, but the woman who simply wanted to be loved. The days after the incident felt heavier than before. The station returned to its normal rhythm, but something unseen had changed. Conversations lowered when people passed the containment wing. Guards no longer laughed near Noctira's chamber. Scientists reviewed data with quiet tension, replaying the same footage again and again, unable to ignore what they had witnessed. Noctira remained weak. She lay on the smooth floor most of the time, her body slow to recover from the energy burns. Medical drones hovered near the barrier, projecting soft light as they scanned her injuries. They provided basic treatment, only enough to keep her alive, but never enough to make her strong. That was the rule: keep the monster contained, never let it recover fully. She accepted the pain in silence. Hunger pressed deeper now, a constant ache that clouded her thoughts. Her species did not simply eat. They absorbed life energy, warmth, vitality. Without it, her senses dulled. Colors faded. Sounds felt distant. Still, she refused to feed, even when the Union scientists quietly discussed controlled extraction from prisoners or animals. She did not want their fear to be proven right. Elias returned to the containment wing the very next shift. Protocol said he should have been reassigned. Human resources suggested rest. Security officers questioned his judgment again and again. Yet he insisted on returning, calm but firm. "She didn't attack," he said every time. "She helped." That was not enough for the council. They sent observers. Cold-eyed officials from multiple species arrived, their presence filling the station with tension. They watched Noctira through layers of glass and energy fields, whispering in sharp tones. To them, her stillness was not restraint. It was patience, a predator waiting. Elias stood at the console, pretending to focus on his work while listening. "She is weakening," one official said. "Starvation can be used as leverage." "She is manipulating the human," another replied. "Classic predatory bonding behavior." Elias clenched his jaw but said nothing. Later, when the observers left, the containment wing grew quiet again. Noctira opened her eyes slowly as Elias approached the barrier. His movements were careful, respectful. He placed a small maintenance stool near the console and sat, facing her. "You're hurt worse than they're admitting," he said softly. Noctira studied him. His voice carried concern, not fear. She had learned to hear the difference. "I will heal," she replied. Speaking still felt strange, but less painful than before. "You shouldn't have had to do that," Elias said. "The system failure wasn't your responsibility." "If I did nothing, you would be dead," she said simply. Elias swallowed. "You could have escaped." "Yes." Silence stretched between them. "Why didn't you?" he asked at last. Noctira looked away. Her eyes settled on the far wall, where faint reflections of the stars flickered through layers of shielding. "Because escape would have proven them correct," she said, "and because you did not deserve to die for their fear." Elias leaned back slightly, processing her words. "They think you're pretending," he said, "that every choice you make is part of some long plan." Noctira's lips curved faintly, not quite a smile. "If I were pretending," she said, "I would not be starving." He nodded slowly. "I saw the medical reports," he admitted. "You've refused every feeding option." Her voice dropped. "Feeding without consent is violence. I will not survive by becoming what they fear." Elias looked at her then, really looked. Not at her pale skin or sharp eyes, but at the exhaustion in her posture, the controlled tension of someone constantly holding themselves back. "You were someone before this," he said. "Weren't you?" Noctira hesitated, memories stirred, painful and distant. But something in his tone made her speak. "I was born to a noble house," she said. "Among my people, that meant power and duty. We were taught that lesser species existed to sustain us. That mercy was weakness." "And you didn't agree?" Elias said. "No," she replied. "I saw worlds burn. I saw children hide from us. I questioned why survival required cruelty when alternatives existed." She closed her eyes briefly. "I proposed change, energy sharing, voluntary bonds. I believed coexistence was possible." Elias waited, sensing there was more. "They called me dangerous," she continued. "A traitor to my own blood. They stripped me of status and sold my location to the Galactic Union. Fear is a profitable thing." Elias felt a chill. "They handed you over." "Yes." Silence returned, heavier now. The observers came back sooner than expected. A formal hearing was called within the station. Noctira remained confined, but her actions were projected into the chamber. Council members spoke in rigid tones, dissecting every movement she had made during the containment failure. "She allowed herself to be injured to build trust," one argued. "She refused to feed to lower defenses," another said. "She waited for the right human," a third added. Elias stood before them when called, heart pounding but voice steady. "She had the chance to escape," he said. "She didn't. She saved my life and stabilized the system. If manipulation was the goal, that was the worst possible strategy." "You are emotionally compromised," the council replied. "I'm observant," Elias said, "and so are your own sensors." "They show declining strength, not preparation." The council dismissed him without comment. That night, Noctira sensed the shift before it was announced. The air felt colder. The barrier hummed at a slightly different frequency. Security protocols tightened. Termination discussions had begun. Elias learned of it through a quiet warning from a sympathetic human officer. There would be an evaluation soon, a final test to determine if Noctira was a threat beyond containment. Elias returned to the containment wing, his steps faster than usual. "Noctira," he said softly as he reached the barrier. She looked up at him, eyes sharp despite her weakness. "They have decided," she said. "You knew," he realized. "They were always going to," she replied. "Fear does not need evidence." Elias hesitated. "They're planning to provoke you," he said. "Stress response tests, controlled exposure, they want a reason." Noctira nodded slowly. "Then they will find none." "You could die," he said. "I have been dying since I arrived," she answered calmly. Something inside Elias hardened then. "I won't let them erase what you've shown," he said. "I'll document everything, every restraint, every choice." Her gaze softened slightly. "Why do you care?" she asked. "I am not your species." Elias thought for a moment. "Because being human means believing choice matters more than nature," he said. "And because no one should be alone just because they're different." For the first time, Noctira smiled fully. It was small, tired, but real. Outside the containment wing, unseen forces moved closer. Orders were drafted, weapons calibrated. The galaxy prepared to destroy what it did not understand. Inside, a monster sat quietly, refusing to become one, while a human chose to stand where others would not. And somewhere between fear and hope, the line that defined humanity began to shine brighter than ever. The evaluation began without warning. Noctira felt at the moment the containment field shifted again. The hum changed pitch, sharper, more aggressive. Her skin tingled as pressure pushed against her senses, probing, testing. The lights brightened, then dimmed, cycling in patterns meant to confuse and provoke. She remained seated, breathing slow and controlled. Across the barrier, Elias stood frozen at the console, eyes locked on the readings scrolling too fast to follow. His jaw tightened as he recognized the test parameters. Elevated stress input, hunger amplification, threat simulation. They wanted to break her. A calm synthetic voice echoed through the chamber, speaking in a neutral tone. Subject Noctira 7, you are now undergoing behavioral verification. Compliance is advised. Noctira did not respond. Images flickered into existence along the chamber walls, projected directly into her visual field. Burning cities, screaming crowds, members of her own species feeding without mercy. Scenes pulled from her memory, twisted and sharpened to hurt. Her hands trembled, but she did not rise. Subject response minimal, the voice noted. Increasing stimulus. The hunger surged suddenly, no longer a dull ache but a sharp, consuming fire, her vision blurred at the edges. Her instincts screamed louder than ever before, urging her to act, to take, to survive. Noctira closed her eyes. Elias slammed his hand against the console. This is excessive, he said loudly. You're not testing behavior, you're forcing a reaction. No one answered him. The barriers tightened further. The air grew heavy, thick with artificial tension. Noctira's knees drew closer to her chest as she fought to stay grounded. She focused on a single thought, a single anchor. Choice matters. Then the station shook. At first it felt like another illusion, another trick layered into the test. But Elias felt it too, a deep vibration running through the floor. Warning alarms erupted across the control room, sharp and urgent. External breach detected, the station announced. Multiple hostile vessels inbound. The projections vanished instantly. The containment field flickered, momentarily unstable as systems rerouted power to defensive grids. Noctira opened her eyes. Elias turned toward the viewport just in time to see flashes of light streak past the station. Pirate ships, their hulls dark and jagged, cut through the void with practiced precision. They fired without hesitation, striking weapon arrays and communication relays. They're hitting critical systems, Elias muttered. They know exactly where to strike. Security teams rushed through the corridors, shouting orders. The council observers scattered, their composure cracking as the station lurched again under heavy impact. Inside the containment chamber, the power dipped. Noctira felt the barrier weaken sharply, far more than during the earlier malfunction. This time it was not controlled. Elias' eyes widened as readings spiked into the red. Shield integrity failing, he said. If it collapses now? The turrets powered up again, their targeting systems confused by overlapping threat protocols. They locked onto the strongest bioenergy signature in the room. Noctira. She rose to her feet slowly. Outside the chamber, explosions echoed closer now. Sections of the station went dark as pirates boarded through forced breaches. Screams filtered through the comm channels before cutting off abruptly. Elias looked at her, fear and urgency mixing in his expression. They're coming, he said. If the barrier drops, the system will treat you as the primary threat. She nodded. Then I must not be. Another impact threw Elias against the console. He struggled back to his feet, fingers flying over controls. I can't stabilize it alone, he said. Power is too low. Noctira stepped closer to the barrier, ignoring the turrets tracking her movement. Pain flared along her skin as energy arced unpredictably. I can help, she said. You'll be killed, Elias replied. If I do nothing, many will, she answered. Before he could respond, the barrier collapsed with a sharp crack of sound and light. The turrets began to fire. Noctira moved. She was faster than any human eye could follow, crossing the space between them in a blur. She struck the nearest turret with precise force, disabling it without destroying the housing. Another she tore from its mount, redirecting its fire into the ceiling where it sparked and died. Elias stared, stunned, as she placed herself between him and the remaining weapons. I will not harm you, she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. The final turret powered down, its systems overridden by emergency protocols responding to external threats. The containment door slid open. Alarms wailed louder now. Overhead lights flickered as emergency power struggled to keep up. Why are you still here? Elias asked, breathless. You're free. Noctira looked toward the corridor where smoke and distant shouting marked the path to escape. Then she looked back at Elias. This station holds many lives, she said. I will not abandon them. She moved past him into the corridor, her senses already mapping the chaos ahead. Pirates advanced in coordinated groups, their weapons loud and crude compared to Union tech but devastating in close quarters. Security forces fell back under heavy fire. Noctira stepped into the open. The first pirate raised his weapon, then froze as he saw her. Recognition flickered across his face. Fear. "She's the vampire," he shouted. She did not attack. Instead, she struck the floor between them with controlled force, sending a shockwave that knocked weapons from hands and threw bodies back without breaking bones. She moved through them like a shadow, disabling, disarming, never killing. Elias followed at a distance, helping injured crew reach safer corridors, watching in disbelief as the so-called monster became a shield. A pirate captain confronted her near the central junction, snarling as he fired wildly. Noctira took the shots across her shoulder and chest, pain burning deep, but she did not slow. She disarmed him and pinned him against the wall, her eyes glowing brighter now, fueled not by hunger but resolve. "Leave," she said simply. The captain fled. As the battle raged, something unexpected happened. Crew members began to rally around her. Humans, aliens, beings who had feared her days before now followed her lead, trusting her movements, her restraint. Together, they pushed the pirates back toward the breach points. When Union reinforcements finally arrived, the station was scarred but standing. Fires smoldered. Bodies lay injured but alive. Noctira stood amid the wreckage, her strength nearly gone. Blood darkened her clothes. Hunger roared louder than ever now, demanding payment for what she had done. She sank to one knee. Elias reached her side just as security weapons locked onto her again. "Stand down," he shouted. "She saved us." The officers hesitated, their training warring with what they had just witnessed. Noctira looked up at them, her voice barely above a whisper. "I submit," she said. "Do not fear me." She collapsed before they could answer. As medical teams rushed forward, the truth settled heavily over the station. The monster had protected them when their systems failed. The predator had chosen restraint even when survival demanded otherwise. And somewhere far above, as reports began to spread beyond the station, the galaxy edged closer to a realization it was not ready to face. That fear had been wrong, and humanity's faith had not been misplaced. Noctira woke slowly, as if rising from deep water. Every part of her body ached. Hunger sat inside her like a heavy stone, pressing and burning at the same time. The air felt different, cleaner, quieter. She opened her eyes. The ceiling above her was not the cold metal of the containment chamber. Soft white panels curved gently, glowing with calm light. The hum of machines was low and steady, not sharp and threatening. She tried to move and felt restraints, light but firm, around her wrists and ankles, not energy shackles, medical supports. "So I am alive," she thought. A figure stepped into her view. Elias stood near the foot of the bed, arms crossed tightly as if holding himself together. Dark circles rested under his eyes. When he saw her awake, his shoulders dropped in relief. "You scared everyone," he said quietly. Noctira swallowed. Her throat felt dry. "I failed," she said. "The station was damaged." "You saved it," Elias replied, "and everyone inside it." She looked away. "That will not matter to the council." He did not answer right away, and that told her everything. The medical bay door slid open. 2 armed security officers entered, followed by 3 council representatives of different species. Their presence filled the room with tension. Weapons stayed lowered, but hands hovered close. Noctira turned her head to face them. She did not struggle. "The subject has regained consciousness," one representative said flatly. "She is not a subject," Elias said sharply. "She's a person." The council member glanced at him with cool disapproval. "Control yourself, human," Noctira spoke before Elias could respond. "I will comply with whatever decision is made," she said calmly. "I ask only that the injured be treated first." The representatives exchanged looks. One of them activated a holo display, projecting footage from the battle. Images showed Noctira standing between pirates and civilians, shielding wounded crew, guiding evacuations, refusing lethal force even when injured. The room stayed silent as the footage ended. "You defied containment," one council member said. "You used your abilities freely." "To protect," Noctira replied, "not to dominate." "That distinction is irrelevant," another said. "Your existence is destabilizing." Elias stepped forward. "She followed your rules even when the station fell apart," he said. "She showed restraint under hunger, pain, and threat." "What more do you want?" "What we want," the council said, "is certainty." Noctira felt the words settle like ice. She knew what certainty meant to them, termination. The council left the medical bay without another word. Guards remained behind, watching her closely. The restraints stayed in place. Hours passed. Doctors treated her wounds carefully, avoiding direct contact when possible. Nutrient fluids were offered, but not bioenergy, enough to keep her conscious, enough to keep her weak. Elias stayed nearby whenever allowed. He spoke to her about small things, how the station would need months to repair, how some crew members had asked about her quietly with curiosity instead of fear. "They're not saying it out loud," he said, "but a lot of people saw what you did." Noctira listened, holding on to his voice. "Seeing is not the same as believing," she said. "No," Elias agreed, "but it's how belief starts." The decision came the next cycle. Noctira was transported under heavy guard to a high-level chamber overlooking the stars. This was not a courtroom, but it felt like one. Representatives appeared as holograms from across the Galactic Union, dozens of eyes focused on her. Elias stood behind a barrier, unable to reach her. The lead council voice echoed through the chamber. "Noctira of the Nightborn," it said, "your actions during the pirate attack are acknowledged. However, your species classification remains unchanged." Noctira stood tall despite her weakness. "I understand," she said. "You are deemed too dangerous to be released," the council continued. "Your continued existence poses an unacceptable risk." Elias felt his chest tighten. "Therefore," the council said, "termination is advised." A low hum began beneath the floor, energy gathered. Before Elias could shout, another voice cut through the chamber. "Humanity objects." The words echoed louder than any weapon. A new hologram appeared, a human representative, older, calm, eyes sharp with quiet authority. "This individual demonstrated moral agency under extreme conditions," the representative said. "By our laws, that defines personhood." The council reacted instantly. "Your laws do not supersede Union authority. They do where human custody is involved," the human replied. "And this station, this operation, and this individual fall under joint jurisdiction." Noctira felt something shift. Not hope, not yet, but possibility. "She saved human lives," the representative continued. "She chose restraint when violence would have been easier. If those choices mean nothing, then your union does not value ethics, only fear." Council voices rose in anger. "She is a predator." "So are we," the human answered calmly. "The difference is choice." The chamber filled with argument, legal codes, jurisdiction claims. Security risks. Elias watched, barely breathing. At last, the lead council voice spoke again. "What does humanity propose?" The human representative did not hesitate. "Asylum." The word hit the chamber like a shockwave. Noctira's breath caught. She turned slightly, looking toward Elias. His eyes were wide, stunned, but burning with determination. "Human protection," the representative continued. "Human oversight, human responsibility. If she fails, the consequences are ours." The council went silent. They had expected weapons, threats, demands, not responsibility. "This sets a dangerous precedent," a council member warned. "Yes," the human replied, "for fear." Time stretched painfully long. Finally, the decision came. "Asylum is granted," the council said coldly. "Under strict conditions, immediate removal from Union space." The hum beneath the floor faded. Noctira sank to her knees, strength leaving her at once. Elias rushed forward as guards lowered their weapons, helping her stay upright. "You're safe," he whispered. She shook her head slowly. "No," she said, "I am claimed." He smiled faintly. "Welcome to humanity." The transfer was swift. A human vessel docked within hours, smaller, quieter, its crew moving with cautious respect. Noctira was escorted aboard not as a prisoner but as a protected individual. Still, fear followed her. Crew members watched from a distance. Whispers spread. Some avoided her path entirely. She expected that. What she did not expect was a child. As she was guided through the ship corridor, a small human child peeked from behind a doorway. Wide eyes studied her pale skin, her glowing gaze. Noctira froze, fear rising inside her. Not fear of the child, but fear of herself. The child did not scream, did not run. "Are you the lady who stopped the bad people?" the child asked. Noctira swallowed. "Yes," she said softly. The child nodded, satisfied. "Thank you," and disappeared back into the room. Noctira stood still long after, something warm and unfamiliar spreading through her chest. Later, alone in her assigned quarters, she sat by a small viewport, watching stars slide past as the ship jumped to faster space. For the first time in her long life, no one was watching her through a weapon sight. She rested her forehead against the glass. She had not been destroyed. She had not been used. She had been chosen. And far behind them, as reports spread through the galaxy, fear began to crack under the weight of a truth no one wanted to face. Humanity had claimed the monster, and in doing so, had revealed something far more dangerous than fangs or hunger. They believed no one was beyond saving. The human world they brought her to was quiet. Noctira expected walls, guards, and constant weapons pointed her way. Instead, she arrived on a wide plain under an open sky. The air was warm and carried the scent of water and living plants. In the distance stood a small settlement, simple buildings surrounded by fields and solar towers. This was not a prison. It was a place for healing, learning, and watching. The humans called it Haven Point. Her ship landed softly and the ramp lowered. Elias stepped out first, scanning the area, then turned back to her. "You're safe here," he said. "As safe as anywhere can be." Noctira stepped onto the soil slowly. The ground felt strange beneath her feet, alive in a way metal never was. She paused, steadying herself as the world seemed too wide, too open. No alarms sounded, no weapons rose. A few humans stood at a distance, watching her with mixed expressions. Fear, curiosity, caution, she recognized all of them. What surprised her was the absence of hatred. She lowered her head slightly in respect. Weeks passed. Noctira lived in a small home near the edge of the settlement. It was simple. One room, soft light, and a window that faced the fields. At first, she barely left it. The hunger still ruled her body, and her strength returned slowly. Human doctors worked with her daily. They never touched her without permission. They spoke clearly, explained everything, and waited for her consent. For the first time, feeding alternatives were truly explored. Energy-sharing systems were tested, using willing human volunteers who gave small amounts safely through controlled technology. No pain, no fear, only trust. The first time she fed this way, Noctira wept quietly, not from hunger, from relief. Word spread slowly across the settlement. The vampire woman did not attack. She did not hunt. She worked, studied, and spoke gently. She helped design better energy systems, combining her people's ancient knowledge with human engineering. Children were the first to approach her. At first, they watched from afar, then closer. Then one day, a small group sat near her as she rested in the shade of a tree. "Are your eyes always shiny?" one asked. "Yes," Noctira replied calmly. "Does it hurt?" another asked. "No. Can you see in the dark?" a third asked. "Yes, that's cool," the child said, smiling. And just like that, the fear broke a little more. Elias visited often, though his duties took him across human space. Each time he returned, he found her more at ease, standing straighter, speaking more. Laughing softly at human humor she once did not understand. "You're changing," he told her one evening as they watched the sunset. "So are you," she replied. Beyond Haven Point, the galaxy reacted. Some worlds were outraged. They called humanity reckless, dangerous, blindly emotional. Others watched closely, waiting for failure. It never came. Reports showed Noctira had not harmed a single being. Instead, energy crime dropped in nearby systems as her research offered new solutions. Slowly, quietly, her existence began to challenge everything the galaxy believed about her species. Then came the visitors. A small delegation arrived one morning, not from the Galactic Union, but from her own people. Noctira felt them before she saw them, the familiar energy. The sharp presence. She stood as their ship landed. They emerged proud and cold, eyes glowing with the same light as hers, but without warmth. "You live among prey," their leader said. "I live among people," Noctira replied. "You have weakened yourself," another sneered. "You belong to us." "No," she said calmly. "I belong to myself," they laughed. "Human protection will fail, you will return to us, or you will be destroyed." Humans stepped forward then, not soldiers, farmers, engineers, doctors. Elias stood beside her. "She's not yours," he said simply, "and she's not alone." The delegation left without violence, but the message was clear. A choice was coming. That night, Noctira stood alone beneath the stars, fear returning like an old wound. Elias joined her quietly. "They might come back," he said. "Yes," she answered. "You don't have to fight them alone," he said. She looked at him. "I never wanted war." "Neither do we," Elias said, "but we won't let fear decide who deserves to exist." The attack came months later. Not just from her people, but from those who feared change. A coalition of extremists struck Haven Point, believing humanity's compassion made them weak. They were wrong. Humans evacuated civilians with calm precision. Defenses activated not to destroy, but to protect. And at the center of it all stood Noctira. She fought with restraint, shielding homes, redirecting attacks, standing as a living barrier between hatred and hope. Humans fought beside her, trusting her completely. Together, they held. When the attackers withdrew, defeated and exposed, the galaxy watched in stunned silence. The monster had defended a human world. The humans had trusted her with their lives. Afterward, the Galactic Union called for peace talks. This time, Noctira stood not as a prisoner, but as a representative. She spoke clearly, her voice steady across the stars. "My species was taught that survival requires fear," she said. "Humanity taught me that survival can also require love." The silence that followed was not empty. It was listening. Years later, Haven Point grew into a symbol. Other worlds followed. Other feared beings were given chances. Not all succeeded, but many did. Noctira walked freely now, no longer watched by weapons. She laughed with children, worked with scientists, rested beneath open skies. One evening, she stood beside Elias again, watching the stars. "I wanted to be loved," she said quietly. He smiled. "You are." And far across the galaxy, a new truth settled in. The most dangerous thing humanity ever did was not building weapons. It was believing that even monsters could choose to be more, and proving they were right.